This is the True North Collective podcast, a gathering of unsugar-coated conversations on authenticity, created by the real-life documentation of everyday humans fearlessly finding their true north.
Welcome to season 4 of the podcast.
Hi, my name is Janelle. My favorite Halloween candy is the Twix bar. The costume I'm most proud of is Toad from Mario Kart, and I get great satisfaction cleaning lint out of the lint catcher.
Hi, I'm Sam. I was a COVID bride. I only take scalding hot showers and leave my husband with 0 hot water. And I had a psychic reading last year that came true.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a near perfect match for my Memoji. I get extremely overwhelmed having to host things or be a tour guide. And I buy a sweatshirt at every place I visit that I love.
And we are your hosts of the True North Collective podcast.
Perfect. Yay. All right, Sam, are you open to talking about your psychic reading, or is that private and personal?
It was so good. I was like, ooh.
Well, that's why I was like, I need to be able to say this thing and surprise you, because I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, what's an interesting fact? And I thought this would be kind of aligned with what we'll talk about and stuff, because the reading I had, it was my old neighbor and I used to go and see psychics. We even went down to Chicago to see one. I love like tarot card. I look at my horoscope every single day. And this one reading, it was a woman in the bell tower on North Ave, if you're familiar, in Milwaukee. And I think her name was Mary Ellen. And she told me that there would be some interesting things happening with management at the company I was working for at Amex, and there would be a reorganization. And then she said something about me doing life coaching, which I'm not doing, but is kind of aligned with what I'm doing. So we ended up going through a huge reorganization, got a new CEO. Like, this is aligned with the timing that she was saying too, because she mentioned it being in like February of the next year. And it was just insane. And I like went back to my notes and everything when I got the news too. So new CEO, reorg, lost my job, it was crazy. So yeah.
I love that.
So sorry. I'm like, so many questions. Go, Rachel.
Okay, so it's like a thought and a question. I too have like seen different people over the years and stuff. There's actually a masseuse in Milwaukee that I went to right before I left there, who was friends with that yoga teacher that we went to, that last class we went to at
Ali Sarzinski.
Yeah, it was a friend of hers. Anyways, so what I have in those I love them, but before I realized like discernment and realizing any information that's coming through that person's coming through their system, and so I have to take it with a grain of salt and like check it with my own. I've had to play with that, because before then I would hold way too much like on to stuff. So I'm just curious how your experience is with it.
Well, it's made me second guess my relationship with my now husband so many times. She would be like,
yeah,
someone has a crush, or like different, or your love language is this and that, and so I'd come home and I'd be like, I'd want to talk to Nick about it. And I just put so much weight into it. And then like, once I just kind of let it go, obviously we go back to normal and everything. But this one, I was kind of like, I had been manifesting some career changes and everything. And I was like, and I didn't think about it a whole lot. And then when it happened, I was like, I've heard this before. Like, I knew this was coming. But yeah, I usually put a ton of weight into what they say. And then this one, I just kind of didn't. So it was interesting.
And then it happened. How often do you feel like, because I'm a big fan of that sort of realm too. Like, I wouldn't say I do a ton of psychic readings, but every once in a while I will. And I do the whole ghost hunting thing and have a ton of fun with that. How often do you feel like the psychic readings are accurate and like actually come true?
Well, that's the first one that like really, really played out. I feel like there was something else a while ago, but I think that you can like kind of make it into like, you can make anything kind of like manipulate your mind into thinking that was exactly what they were going to say. But that one was just a little too like specific, like in February, this will happen. I don't know. I think little bits and pieces. A lot of times what I realize in the readings that I've done is that they're kind of already telling me things that I know. you know, like they're reading my personality and everything. Like even when I look at my co-star every day, I'm kind of like, or it's different, but the Enneagram and stuff, I'm like, yeah, these things are like me, but I don't know. It's like I'm a basic girl. So maybe that's why they're telling me things that I kind of already know or do.
Well, and it's also, it's your lens. Like you're reading it, and like someone could read the same exact thing and be like, that's me. And it'd be almost for different reasons because you're seeing it through your lens and
It's the
connecting it to your life.
interpretation of the cards too. You know, it's like one person could read it and interpret it this way, and the other person could read it and interpret it a totally different way. So
Totally. So what do you think you get from it, the psychic readings? Is it fun? Is it like, what brings you back?
I think it's just so fun. I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes it's like gives you a little bit of clarity, I think, or it makes you feel as if there would be some clarity, like maybe there are answers, or I don't know. I think you're always just hopeful when you go into those things.
Well, there's something too about like, there's so much we don't know, and to have an arena to play with things that are kind of like in that unknown territory, which is honestly, there's so much that we don't know. I mean, and I'm speaking for myself. That's why I love it. Like I have a friend who is a channeler, and it's the same thing. Like when I'll get sessions, or I'll buy sessions for people for like gifts and through her. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like a fun experience to tap into something like unknown and be like, it's possible. Who knows? Like, what is actually like, what are you tapping into? I don't know.
Have you heard of pet psychics?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
100%.
I hadn't heard of it until I was listening to a different podcast, and she was talking about her experience with the pet psychic. They had just like adopted some cats or something. It was hilarious. And I'm like, oh, I really want to do that with our family dog. He gets so weird at night. Like he must be like blind or something, but he'll just out of nowhere just start barking at the ceiling or going crazy. And so I'm like,
ghost.
I wonder what his little mind is, up.
There's a ghost in your house for sure.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, they pick up subtle energies. That doesn't necessarily have to mean it's a ghost, but maybe.
For sure. I also agree. So CoStar you mentioned before, it's the horoscope app for anyone that doesn't know. Specifically during COVID, when I was in a not great place and by myself in lockdown, I would read my horoscope every single morning just to be like, something good will happen today, right? And it was I was like this, like, I'm sure yours is much healthier than this, but for me, I was just like, please be good. And then if it wasn't, I was like, oh nope, today's not gonna be a good day. And since then I don't use it as much, but I do get that hope piece where like you're just looking like in a really dark place that I was in. It's like I was just looking for anything that would be like, today has some possibility for something good, and I could like find something in there, and then the message that'd be like, okay, today love and relationship will be good. There's a reason to get out of bed.
Yeah, I like the do's and don'ts. I don't know if you've been on it recently, but that's like it's like a newer thing. And I said to Nick, he thinks I'm totally nuts. But the other night I had taken a bath, so hot water. I did like a sugar scrub on my snaky legs right now because winter. And when I looked at it afterwards, it was like do's, hot water, sugar scrub, and I was like, see, it's predicting the future. It tells me what to do. It's just funny.
That's awesome. I feel like I need to check that because I don't think I've seen the do's and don'ts yet on it. And
It's funny. It's pretty random. It's like,
it is so random.
Don't eat pickles. Like,
really?
Do cannonball into a pool. Yeah. It's pretty funny.
The other day, one said like, don't do the piggybacking. And I was like a piggyback ride, like piggyback people's ideas. Like I had no idea what direction that one was going.
You're like, I need more clarity, please.
I need some
CoStar
clarification here, more specifics. Yes.
That's awesome.
When Janelle and I first started doing CoStar, we would get the notifications. I think wasn't it you? I think it was you, or it was my friend Kylie. I can't remember now. But we would get the daily notifications, but mine every single day was like, you're an asshole, or like, you're a terrible person and you make everybody mad. Like it was just like every single day. And Janelle was like, no, that's not true. And I was like, no, I need to show you. Like, it is mean to me. And so I deleted the app for like a good year because I was just like, it's just fucking insults me every single day.
I
You
mean,
did.
Yeah.
You definitely told me that, and I don't know if it was me because mine was always really like it was pretty
I know.
positive.
I know.
It
Jill
was
was
just
like, oh, listen to
you're
this
great.
one. The sunshine is coming out of my eyeballs. And mine was like, you're a piece of shit. Like, and nobody likes you.
I always like to read the relationship ones too, where you can like compare it to other people, and those get really funny too. And it's like, you are sincere of heart, but someone else is being a dick. Watch out
Like
for them.
you can link up with your friends. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see like Rachel, I think yours and mine, like sometimes I'll go in there and just like read what it says, and those I don't put a lot of weight on it, but they're funny. And then the guy I'm dating, he at some point to humor me got it, and I was like, let's see how we match. And sometimes I go in there and I just like laugh really hard because it doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
Sam, what's your sun sign?
Oh, like
Astrology. Just your
I'm a
your
Taurus.
Taurus. Okay.
Yeah.
You're my mom. Cool. I'm an Aquarius.
I have a good friend of mine is a Capricorn, and she knows all of the ins and outs of the signs, and like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll be like, it tells me to like hook up with the earth fire today. What does that mean? And she'll be like, da, da, da. You know, it's just it's
Yeah.
very funny. She's really, really into it. And then she like sends me all of these things that say why we're such good friends and why we're so compatible, a Capricorn and a Taurus and stuff. And then Nick is an Aries, but he doesn't seem like, she's like, he is not like, I do not get Aries vibes from him. And then she's dating, so she'll always say things about like, I love Sag men, but they're not right for me. It's just hilarious. I'm like, I don't know what this stuff means. I just read my own shit.
that's awesome. Okay, so this is, I don't know if we talked about this in the podcast, but I always have the same sun signs as friends, and I typically almost always date the same sun signs too, which is really interesting. So the fact that you said you're Taurus, like I don't think I have a single friend that's a Taurus. So you're changing that now, but they're all Aquarius, Gemini. I think I have one like December birthday. Is that Sagittarius? Okay, whatever. It doesn't really matter.
It can be Capricorn.
Or Capricorn, and like, but otherwise, really, it's like Aquarius and Gemini. And then I used to always date Scorpios. The guy I'm dating is the first person I've ever dated and been in a relationship in my adult life that is not a Scorpio.
What is he?
Cancer. So also a water sign.
Dude.
But
Cancers. I always have cancers in my life.
Cancer cusp.
Yeah, I remember that.
Cancer Leo.
Yeah.
All right, should we jump in? This is
Yeah.
I'm gonna introduce Sam. I could keep going on this conversation for quite a while, but we'll introduce Sam. Awesome. So we're really excited to be inviting Sam Porter, new last name. And we know Sam from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, specifically Spire Fitness, where she is a cycling instructor. And in addition to that, Beachbody coach. I wrote this down, her word or my words, not yours, but I said Milwaukee influencer because I truly think you're influencing the Milwaukee community. Avid runner, and are you still plant-based?
I am.
Plant-based, yep. So I stole some things off your Instagram. All of the above. But plant-based consumer, I will say, but very much well-versed in the fitness scene in, I would say Milwaukee, but you definitely have extended well beyond Milwaukee, and a fantastic cycling instructor. So welcome to the podcast, Sam.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
The conversation.
I think I originally reached out maybe 10 months ago, maybe longer. So I'm also very excited to have you here. We had chatted on a few different topics because I think what you're doing right now is so interesting and exciting, and it's been cool as an outsider to just kind of like watch the evolution of it. So I'm actually really glad that we waited to have this conversation because I think there's been so much evolution that we can talk about on the podcast. But a few of the topics that I'm excited to talk about is fitness community in general. I know for the three of us, that's really important to us and our lifestyle and what we care about. Social media and authenticity is another topic that we chatted about. and then just a general like making a big career flip. You had mentioned getting laid off in February, so I know we'll kind of jump and dive into that part of your story too. But before we get there, here's the question. What does it look like to be true to Sam today?
Ooh, that is such a loaded question. I feel
Rachel came up with that one.
Yeah, I think just being true to me is, this will kind of tie into our last question, I'm sure, but just kind of always trusting that I'm doing what my heart thinks is, the right thing, and paying a little bit less attention to what everyone else is doing and expecting. And, it's hard to, when close people around you are making they're uncomfortable with different things that you're doing and they don't understand it. And I think it's easy then to like just go back to doing what everyone understands, and something you can explain to them very easily. And I'm like, but that doesn't make me happy, and it stresses me out and stuff. And so yeah, just being true to me is trusting that every day I'm showing up as my best, and I'm trying to move forward, and that I'm going to make things work that is going to be the best for myself and my family and my husband, and the future that I see us having.
How have you gotten there? Like, what's the path that's gotten you there?
There are so many different places I feel like I could branch into this, but I suppose that it kind of all really started about 3 years ago when I started a new health and fitness journey. I've always been into fitness. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I played club basketball, club softball, and then I went on to play Division II softball at UW Parkside in southeastern Wisconsin. That was a very brief career. It just was not for me. After playing since I was a young girl, I was very burned out. So I did end up leaving the team. And then I picked up running. So my sister and I signed up for our first half marathon. And that's when I like became obsessed with running, in a good and bad way, but that was like my main source of fitness over the years. I lived in Chicago. I was in a run club there. And then when I moved back to Milwaukee, that was pretty much what my life revolved around. In 2017, I decided that I was going to run my third full marathon. I had run 2 others in Milwaukee. The first one was pretty rough. Second one, I did much better. And then the third one, I was like, I have some big goals. So I decided I really wanted to push towards qualifying for Boston. And after talking to a lot of other people who were runners and athletes and everything, everyone's like, you need to start cross training. Like, you've been doing this running thing for years. You have to incorporate more. So that's when I got hooked up with Spire. I started cycling several days a week, doing the TRX, strength training, rowing. And that was like a really positive part of my life. My running had never been better. I ended up taking first place in the Rock and Soul race at the beginning of summer, which is no longer a thing in Milwaukee, but that was such a big moment for me that I was like, okay, it's really on. So right after that race is when really marathon training picks up, and it's when I decided I was going to leave Spire and just focus on my running, which was probably like mistake number 1, because all that pounding every single day, it was so hard on my body, and I worked my ass off all summer, but I was like fighting off aches and pains left and right. But it was like, I think from being an athlete as a young kid, you are always told like, no pain, no gain, like push through it. I would pitch 7 games in a weekend in 95-degree weather with tendonitis in my elbow. And like, it was just, you have to do it. Like, you have to show up. Are you a team player? Like, get it done. So that was kind of in my head through marathon training. But it definitely caught up to me. Like weeks before the Lakefront Marathon, which is the beginning of October, I went out for my 19-mile training run, and it was the worst run of the year. My gait was off, my stride, everything. But I kept telling myself, I didn't stop. I just kept saying, this is a character building run. You're going to get through it. Like, if you can finish this run, you can do anything on race day, like anything that, if it's bad weather, whatever, if you're hurting, you'll make it to the finish line. But then the next morning I woke up, I stepped out of bed and couldn't even put weight on my right leg. So I naturally still tried to go out for a run that day. I remember taking Nick with me and like barely making it a mile without like being in so much pain and crying. And I tried running the rest of the week, and I was getting nowhere. I couldn't do it. So I finally went in and got a diagnosis. I found out I had a stress fracture in my hip, and that I couldn't do my race. And that was just, I mean, I couldn't even walk without pain. So I kind of knew that I wouldn't be able to do this race. But getting the actual news that something that you've worked so hard for all year, that was devastating. And that was, you know, we're just getting into the winter in Wisconsin, and like I said, running for years was my life. You know, my sleep schedule, my social life, everything. It's like if I wanted to see a friend, it was like, let's go for a run and catch up. Everything revolved around fitness, but specifically running. And so to not be able to run, first of all, like not be able to do my race, then not be able to work out for months. You know, my order was like no weight bearing exercise for 6 weeks. And then I kind of didn't listen. So then it just kept getting worse and worse to the point of I had to take the entire winter off. So I just, not having that and not having that structure, I just felt really lost. And I felt down every single day. You know, it's like, that was the only time I got outside and got fresh air, and it just was challenging. And at the time I was working full time from home, pharmaceutical compliance. I was an auditor, and my day basically looked like roll out of bed, sit in my PJs all day at my desk, work, log off work, move over to the couch, sit and scroll on my phone until Nick got home. I mean, he was off. He'd be at the office, then go play basketball or volleyball with his friends. And when he came home, I was like irritated. Like I just sat here all night by myself. But if he stayed home with me, it was kind of bitchy and like unpleasant to be around. So it was just a really stressful time for us. And I was feeling really unfulfilled in work. And I started to feel like, what is my purpose? You know, what am I doing all day with myself? Like, why am I here? And I just remember kind of sinking deeper and deeper into this funk. I lost like all confidence, felt like I couldn't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. I started to kind of get it back into these bad mindsets and habits. I remember like freaking out that I couldn't exercise, like, oh, am I going to gain weight and stuff? And that's a whole different issue. But I was really falling into this crazy part of myself. And I remember like end of February, you know, after 4 months on my ass, I was in the tub and I texted my sister. She's 5 years older than me, and she's always been a very confident person. And just as the older sister, a little judgmental of the younger sister sometimes. And so I was terrified of what she would think or say, but I didn't know who to turn to. And I just told her, I'm like, I feel worthless. And that was like rock bottom, like getting those words out to the person that like I looked up to most. And it was just, that was a tough time. But she was really supportive, and she said to me, we have to find something positive for you to do. And so when I thought about something positive, crazy enough, I was like, well, one thing that seems really positive is every night when I scroll, I see this girl on Instagram who is working out every day. She does these workouts at home. She has this whole fitness community with girls from all over the country. I feel like I've never had fitness friends. Like even when I was at Spire, I kind of just went in, sat in the back. Like I talked to a few instructors here and there, but like, you know, I went in the back corner of the spin room and I kept to myself, and then I left, and, you know, I loved it, but I just wasn't that much of like an extrovert to like make friends there. So anyway, I was like, well, you know, she would probably welcome me. And I don't know, we've talked about it before, and now would maybe be a good time. And I was like, I don't know how this thing is going to work. I don't even think it's going to work. But I reached out. I got started with her 21-day online boot camp with Beachbody. And within that first week in this virtual community with a bunch of strangers, I felt like me again. So crazy to me. Like, I think that sometimes on social media, people think we're full of shit. You know, when we're like, I'm so obsessed with this, I love it so much. But it's like, literally in the first week, I felt like I went from 0 to 100, and I felt so supported and felt like these are really my people. I met a girl who's like such a good friend of mine who lives in Denver, and we've skied with her and her husband. You know, I've stayed at her house a bunch, but yeah, I just really loved it. I was loving the workouts. I was feeling stronger and more confident instantly. And then I just got curious. So I remember texting her. I was like in Metro Market and it just came into my head and I was like, hey, how did you get into this like coaching thing? And like, how did you create this community? I wonder if I could do something like that. And we hopped on a phone call. And it's so funny because I look back and I was such like, I had no confidence and I just was so like shy and insecure. And we hopped on the phone and I enrolled to be a coach with her team and run these boot camps. And then I started from that moment in March of 2018, I started sharing my journey on social media, really for my own accountability with all of this, but also to make those connections. And then I didn't have a lot of people I knew, like I didn't want people to find me just yet, but I tagged Spire in something and then Katie started following me and I thought she was like a celebrity. And 6 months later or something, she was like, hey, she slid into my DMs and was like, I would really like you to audition for Spin at Spire. And I called my mom, like, this is a dream come true. You know, it's just crazy because I had really been falling in love with the whole coaching aspect. And I was like, I want to do this in person too, you know? So auditioned at Spire fall 2018. I know this is a long-winded story, but I fell in love with that. And over the next year, I just really, even though I was still not loving my job, I poured into my side hustles. I was teaching 4 classes and then subbing on top of that. I was doing my boot camps every single month online. And yeah, fast forward, came back from St. Thomas in February of 2020. After telling Nick the entire time that I needed a new job and I logged into work, I had an email from my boss that he sent at 5 a.m. for a meeting at 10 a.m. Logged in to that call, told him we had just gotten engaged and he told me they cut my position. So yeah, this is before the COVID layoffs and everything. Like this was just the reorg. But I remember, honestly, it was scary as hell. Like we had just gotten engaged and we were planning a wedding. And I'm like, this is like the only reason I was keeping my job is the financial stability and the benefits. But like, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then after talking to Nick and a couple close friends, I was actually relieved, honestly. I'm like, I don't have to be the one to like walk away, you know, like it was such a weird thing, but Nick and I talked about it then over the next 3 weeks that I was on the job still. And we talked about me doing fitness full time. And I was like, I'm just going to teach a bunch of classes. Like it's all going to work. And then a month later, the studio shut down. So it has been a wild ride, but that is as quick as I could make that story.
No, this is like, okay. So one, I love this because like, I feel like I know you like, but through association. So just like hearing your story and like, actually being able to talk to you is like awesome to hear the background. And quick question and then another comment, but what's your Enneagram number?
3.
Yeah. Okay. Me too. When you said that, I was like, Patricia's Enneagram 3.
Yeah.
Me too. So similar there. And also similar, I got laid off from my job in end of August, early September. And it was the same thing. I'll just say it. Not like this in the podcast anyway. By the time I got laid off, I hated that job. Like I just was not a good culture fit. And I woke up every day feeling like a piece of trash. Like I couldn't do my job well. I didn't have the tools I needed to do my job well. But like and then every day I had to wake up knowing I was choosing to do that job for financial reasons, which yes, can be an important reason to stick with your job. And it like, when it finally happened, I was like, thank God. It was like the best possible outcome to be laid off because it was like, okay, now I can, have unemployment, and it maybe isn't the most empowering decision to have someone else make the decision for you, but like that was what I wanted. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah. Totally get that. And
well, not to interrupt, but I'm interrupting. That was the part that I think killed me the most, is that I worked 4 jobs all of 2019 to make myself feel better about having the 8 hours a day. But all I would think about is that day that I could just like stick it to them, because I had left a company in Chicago that was amazing benefits, amazing team, loved it. But I took this job as a growth opportunity after turning it down and my boss like promising me growth. And then it never came in 5 years. And then I got laid off. I was like, that's the hardest part, is I didn't feel like I had the opportunity to feel empowered enough to leave on my terms. So I struggled with that a little bit, but was a push from the universe for both of us, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm like. For a while, I was like, just get laid off. Just like, like, which is terrible because I know so many people lost their job and like not by choice, but I get that. It was like, yeah, part of me really wanted to be like, no, like Janelle, make the decision for yourself, like take control. And you don't like the job, it's making you feel terrible about yourself, like walk away on your own. And yeah, part of me wishes I would have. And then the other part of me is like, nope, actually you got just what you needed and what you wanted when it happened.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
When you said the part about the worthlessness, was that something that you experienced? Like, where in that timeline was it? Had you been laid off already, or was that after? And when you look back on it, was that there the whole time?
Where I said I felt worthless
Mm-hmm.
when I texted my sister.
Yeah.
I was still working my job. So that was, yeah, I had a full-time job, and I like literally the only problem in my life was that I couldn't work out. Like it was just so like I was pretty lonely. Like I was very isolated. I was sat here by myself all day long. And I feel, even though I'm kind of introverted, I need that, like, I need to have some sort of interaction with people. And I'm not entirely sure what made me feel that way, but it was like my job brought me zero joy, and it didn't, like, it literally just paid the bills, you know?
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like maybe your worth wasn't tied up in your job. It was tied up in the athletics that you were involved in. I ask just from a standpoint of like, I've been paying more attention to where my worth is tied, and for a long time it was tied up in my title and how much money I made. And when I moved to Milwaukee, that was like my first attempt at stepping into a lifestyle where I could develop a sense of self-worth outside of six figures and big titles. And I'm really proud of myself for having worked through that. So I don't have that association as strongly. I'm sure if I really dug deep and things, you know, it is there. But it isn't really my life in that way. But now I actually see how much my self-worth is tied to my relationships. And so I've been playing with that association. So that's the only reason why I was asking is, you know, on paper, it can be things. And to me, or to anyone, it might seem like, oh, it's just because I wasn't able to work out. But, you know, if a part of your worth and identity is tied into something that then gets taken away, that makes a ton of sense. So
I think what I've learned, that's such a good point to make, because I think what I've learned, I was kind of an unhappy and insecure, and I didn't feel that great about myself ever, like since I was a teen. And I went and played college softball because I thought it would be impressive to the people around me. And then I ran the marathons because I talked about my marathon training, and I went and ran three hours today. And, you know, oh yeah, you know, like it was always about impressing everyone else. And I think that's what the interesting thing has been in 2020 for me, is like, like I feel worthy and happy since 2018, more so because it's not like I've ditched so many insecurities, and I've gotten so much more fulfillment out of my life, because I feel like now I'm pouring not only into myself and what everyone thinks, but more so like helping the next person like find their happiness and joy. And like I feel like what I'm doing now is like inspiring someone, you know. And so it's just kind of interesting, because that made me like think about the fact that like I was never really like feeling super worthy unless I had something that I could like brag about, you know.
Yeah. And what I just heard there is that I think maybe somebody poured into you and you got to experience being seen for just who you are, not because of an accomplishment. And then it like came full circle for you to be able to pour into somebody else in that capacity too, which is really, really cool. We've been talking a little bit about, and I've been seeing it on Instagram, so this is not an original thought by any means, but this idea of self-help versus community help. And it's interesting because I've been in these discussions with people in the wellness world for a while of like, you know, I need to be able to take care of myself so that I'm not putting that on somebody else. Like I need to, and at a certain point when I was having these conversations with people, I was like, but the point isn't that I am like the best version of myself on an island. Like the point is that like we're part of a community. We are a part of a community. If that happened, great, but like that's not what's here. And so, you know, it was like, okay, so I guess I figure out how to be the best version of myself on an island, and then I learn how to integrate with others. But what it's iterated to is the idea that part of the healing journey is about self, like learning how to be your own best friend and da 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 da. And it's also about being able to receive help from others and be in that community space. And I hear you really being able to step into that too. So I'm so glad that you got to experience that and that you're getting to be able to like expand that in your world and other people's.
We always refer to it as like paying it forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like that. I mean, and that's truly what it is. It's my Danielle, the stranger on Instagram, who's now a very good friend of mine. She showed up every single day and she gave me those daily deposits of inspiration and motivation. And then she welcomed me and she poured into me. And then I decided I wanted to do the same for the next person. And that's kind of like, when we talk about coaching, that's really what it is. It's kind of like being that light and bringing that next person on board and giving them the tools and the support and believing in them when they don't believe in themselves and stuff. And I think that's why, because I've experienced it myself and I had such a transformational experience, is like why I love it so much.
Yeah, your passion's definitely apparent. I was reading on my flight. I flew back from California to Wisconsin, and Angry Therapist, shocker, shouting him out again, but I'm reading one of his books. And when they talk about like purpose and worth and how a lot of people don't feel like they have that worth or purpose, but a lot of times it's because they're doing it from like a place of ego and I. And he's like, flip it. Like imagine that if you don't step into these gifts and these aspects about yourself, like you are doing your community, the people around you, such a disservice. Like you've been given these things. So even if you don't believe in yourself, even if you don't think you're worth it, like think about the other people that you can help. And your story just reminded me of that, because sometimes I think it's so easy for me personally to think, oh, I have these skills, but I choose not to use them, or I choose to do the safe thing because that is honestly like it's financially safe, or it's just safe in general for me. But then I'm really just doing not only myself a disservice by not fully living my life, but I'm not able to properly utilize my tools to help other people. And I've felt that way in jobs and in relationships and whatnot. Like if it's just not a good fit, rather than letting go, it's like I end up not actually being able to give. I think you used the word light, and I'll repeat it, like my light, my energy, like the things that really make me out into the world. So I appreciate that.
And if you're always influencing, and this is a Thrive concept, which I freaking love, you know, no matter what, like from a modeling standpoint, at any point in time, we are modeling a behavior. We are influencing the world around us by being who we choose to be. And so if you are choosing to influence the world, because you're influencing no matter whether you're trying to or not, you are. And so if you are choosing to influence it from a place of, you know, holding back and choosing the safe route at the expense of yourself, we're just perpetuating, we're influencing the world. And it might be a small ripple, but it's a ripple. And the more people that are doing that ripple, it's like, that is, I mean, you've got this power. And when you think, and I'm saying you, but I'm talking to myself too, like when I can sit in that realization and remember that power without putting pressure on myself, because I flipped the pendulum the other way, but without doing that, and really just sitting in like, the best thing I can possibly do in the world is to get so comfortable with myself that I can just own all the parts of who I am and share and be that gracefully in the world, because that actually allows other people to do the same. That ripple is like, damn. And I feel that on the podcast when we do that. And I'm not necessarily in it all the time, but it is a really cool reminder.
I love that.
Sam, I'm curious, when it comes, you started to touch on this and I'm super excited about it. So I'm going to transition a little bit. When it comes to social media, you had mentioned that it was something that you were doing when you were not feeling, 100% you, and you're just scrolling, but there was someone that sparked your interest, and now you're building this platform to be able to share. Like, you have sponsored posts now, which is really cool. Like, are you willing to talk a little bit more about that, but from the perspective and the lens of doing it in your own authentic way? Because I do think a lot of people can get into that space and then feel the pressure from the outside world to present themselves a certain way, or to, follow the 10-step program to build a following. So I'm curious how you've started to utilize social media in a way that feels true to who you are today.
Well, when I created Run It Sam, first it was called Run It MK because I literally didn't want anyone to find me, because I wanted to be able to be myself without any fear of anyone else. And like, I've lost touch with everyone from high school. Like, but there are just those people that creep back in. They like have their thoughts, and they can impact the way that you present yourself or don't. You can be so like paralyzed by your fear of their judgment when they're probably not even thinking about you. But so I created my account right when I enrolled to be on this team, and I just, from the first day, I really wanted it to be an accountability page for my own personal growth. And so it was like, I need to show up as myself or I'm never going to make any changes, and I think that I just have held on to that, is like how obviously things have changed. Like, I've recruited Nick to take better photos of me or better lighting or whatever it is. And, but I think that if I just always come back to, like, I have a story to tell, and if I keep it real, then someone is going to be able to relate. And if I try to say what so-and-so is saying all the time, or be just like them, they're not going to see themselves in me, and they're not going to kind of relate to how I live my life and stuff. And then they're not going to come to me when they're struggling. And I always want people to see the struggles that I've been through and know that, we're not like perfect people, and we're real people, because that's how we can help each other. I don't know what direction to go with all of this, but I think that showing up on social media is such it's easy to be in the comparison game, which is why I no longer like really look at the pages that I feel like kind of make me feel a certain way. It's like you take those toxic things out, and you just have to be able to recognize it and then just refocus and be like, why am I here? What do I want? Like, what is my purpose? And I think that for me is, when I go on social media too, I'm always trying to just kind of make it a community thing, and not ever be in competition with the next person too. It's like, love and support their posts, and not ever be like, oh, someone's getting more likes and stuff. It's like, that is not the purpose of being here. It's to tell the story. It's to show the journey, and hope that I can pull someone out from that low point when they're in the tub texting their sister too. So it's just always kind of coming back to why I even started the page to begin with. It's not about, for me, social media has never, ever been about getting when people were starting to call me an influencer at Spire, like, I was like, I am not, please don't, like, now it's like, fine, like, it's good to have influence, and I'm really grateful for it. But at first I was like, that is still not the goal. Like, I don't care about a promoted post or anything. Like, it's very cool that my page is growing and more eyes are on it, because that means more people to help. Even if, not everyone signs up for a boot camp or comes to a class at Spire, it's like they're taking something away if they're watching. And what do I want that message to be? And I don't think, like, I always try to keep it lighter or positive, I would say, for the most part. But I'm also not afraid to share the hard stuff when it feels authentic and real.
I'm just sitting in it. I know Rachel and I talk a lot about, social media with the True North Collective, and then even on our own posts and in our own pages, and just finding your voice. It's interesting because it's like we even had an episode, and we'll have to link to it at some point, on like finding your voice as a teacher and sort of in life. And then if like that weren't hard enough, now it's like we have to do this on, well, we don't have to, but we're choosing to do this on a public channel that your posts can live forever, I guess, unless you delete them, and you're trying to find your voice in that space. And I appreciate your call to like, yeah, it's mostly positive and you're not afraid to share the hard stuff, because I know for me personally, like I struggle with like how to sometimes interact with my social media. Like I put stuff out there, like I'm always really happy with what I put out there, in the sense that like they're cool photos that I'm excited that I took, or it's a place for me. Like I look back at my own feed and like remember like, hey, you've lived, you know, it's like sort of my own proof that I've been trying to live the fullest life that I can in the moment. But then I struggle with like, is this genuine? I mean, it is truly a highlight reel.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I bring forward truly what, because like not right now it's like I'm, you know, living with my parents, unemployed, like, you know, which there's pros and cons to that, but like how do you bring forward the raw authentic without also feeling like a Debbie Downer? I don't know if this is relating to anyone else, but I ask this because I'm like, I don't really like, it also is not authentic for me to post a picture of myself crying, and not that like if people do that, good on them, but like I can hardly cry in front of my friends, so let alone like taking a picture of myself while I'm crying and then posting on the internet. Like I know that that wouldn't be authentic to me, but I'm like, what is the authentic version of, I don't know, keeping it real and not having it be perfect, or like, here's all the best pictures I took. So anyway, that was a rant, but I'm just curious, and I'll open up the floor to both of you on your perspective there.
I don't know. Like, I feel like I had so many thoughts there. I think sometimes for me, it's easier on stories to be a little more like in the moment and kind of say, but I'm also someone who, yeah, kind of closes off a little bit. When I'm going through something very serious, it takes me a minute for it to like come out, you know, and I don't think it would be authentic for me to make every post a long dramatic post, or, you know, and it's like, I realized quickly when I first started the page, like when it was starting to gain some traction, I thought every post needed to be the most inspiring, motivational thing and stuff. And then it's like, I took the pressure off a little bit, and I was like, okay, I can be a human and process what's going, like, I didn't share about my job. Like I knew I wanted to share about what I was going through with my job eventually, but it's like, that wasn't the first thing. Cause I think sometimes for me too, I think that people look at their struggles as a way to like sell on Instagram, or, you know, like that might be bad or mean. Some people just need to get it out there. But for me, it's like, I want to process this and come out with what is the most real to me. But I do think that I show up on stories with how I'm feeling that day. You know, it's like, and if I don't feel like showing up, I'm not just going to fake it and hop on. So that's a little like, I think too, if I can go off on a tangent, sometimes it's hard for me to share some things depending on the moment, because it can kind of trigger me a little bit. Like my sister is now a follower of mine on Instagram, and she wasn't for a long time, and she didn't know about a lot of the struggles that I had in my 20s with body image stuff, and that's a big part of my platform and helping women through that. And I shared a lot of that in 2018, 2019, and then it's like she started following me, and I was like, can't talk about this anymore. I've also grown past it, so I feel like I don't bring it up as much. But when she found some old posts, it like freaked me out, and it sent me down a hole, and it like brought back all this anxiety and stuff. And so sometimes I do get a little, I think that's why it's so important to process what's going on and figure out like, what is the message here that I want to share that will help someone else? Because you do have to be kind of mindful of like sending yourself into a negative place too. And like for me, when I first did the page, again, it was my own accountability, and I had different goals and different priorities and different struggles, and body image was more important to me. And I would share my side by sides and stuff. And I'm like, now that shit is not going to be on my page, because it's just not, it's not the message that I want out there anymore for myself. for the women I'm helping. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think that, but for me, I can't deal with it right now. So I don't share those things. And I think it's just making sure you're always in touch with what feels good to you and what you want to share, and not about what is going to get the likes, what is going to get the attention, what's going to go viral. Sometimes it just needs to be for you and your audience, you know, like not your 4,500 followers, but your audience. Like, that's what I always say. Is like some of my longer posts and stuff, my friends will be like, yeah, I didn't read that. And I'm like, but it's not for you, you know, it's for the one girl who's sitting in her tub, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say about I'm gonna say the sob story posts. I mean, it's all attention getting. It's a different form of attention. If and there aren't, not all of it is that, but you can kind of tell. I mean, I feel like I can tell when somebody is coming at me, and I'm like, okay, it feels like you're fishing for something here, whether it's, the overly happy, or it's just like overly something. And I would say for myself, I tend to be more serious and um, really like go deep. And I've found that really paying attention to how I feel when I post is kind of similar. It might be similar to what you were saying, Sam, but I can all of a sudden I feel overexposed basically. And I'm like, oh, that is authentically what I want to say, but now all of a sudden that's out there, and I'm not sure if I'm just not sure, like, whoa. And so when I was first starting to wrestle with like how do I talk about having cancer in a way that feels true to me? Um, I remember like the first few times I posted being like, oh, holy shit, what should I have done that? Now people are going to know. Now they're going to ask me questions. Why am I doing it? So for a while, I don't know. I kind of am in and out with social media where like I'll kind of go in these like blasts where it'll like happen. I'll be in it and I'll have something to say. And so I'll like post, and then I might go dark for a while. And I think, and that's okay. Like it's really being connected to my intention of like, what am I trying to get? And when I'm connected to having it be for me always, and I'm slowing down enough to ask myself, like, is this something that you want to share with people who maybe haven't earned it yet? Are you ready to share it more broadly? Like really being connected to your point, like not worrying about, the diminishing followers, the likes, the whatever. I'm so glad that they got rid of like the number of likes that a photo has. Like, I'm so glad. But it's a constant process, because I feel like, and with Janelle, you and I probably balance each other, where I am like, I tend to go more like super raw serious, and you tend to be like, let me show the highlight reel. And so it has been, I think it's actually been interesting to be like a tag team with the True North Collective, because I feel like we've both been able to challenge each other to step out of our comfort zones a little bit and get out of our safety space, because I too like have things that I want to say, but then I'll be like, oh, I don't know. And then she's like, just freaking say it. Like there's a nugget in there. So I don't really think I've made like a cohesive thought here whatsoever, but that's my reflection of like, of my, yeah. Yeah, I do remember in Milwaukee though, that was like the first time that, because I'm quite a bit older, and I hadn't really started like paying attention to Instagram until, I don't know, I guess I was like in my young 30s at that point. And I didn't really, I don't know, I remember being so taken by the whole experience in a way of like, this is exciting, but this is weird. I'm kind of obsessed with it, but I fucking hate it. And yeah, I'm proud of myself. I feel like I've come a long way in being able to just let it exist. Although in the moments I still have times where I'm like, who am I doing this for? What am I doing? I'm here and I'm scrolling.
Yeah. So if I can
Who cares?
about,
Yeah.
Janelle said something gosh, I forget what it was, but I get in the, I get in those moments too where I'm like, I I like social media a lot because I think of the connection I made that changed my life forever. And everything, even losing my job this year, if I didn't build the brand on social media and stuff, what would I have fucking done? It's like, thankfully I could still stay connected with women, and we could build out the community so much more. It's been a saving grace, but it can be so consuming sometimes, but this is what it was when you said like not sharing your gift or whatever can be like selfish. And so that's what brings me back to like making sure that I don't go dark, or that I let it be. Like if I have to unplug, I unplug or whatever. I have had my moments where I have been so consumed by needing to make sure that I put up a post or get this story going or something. And Nick and I are like hiking in a mountain, and I'm like, where's my service? I got to get the, and like that, I was like, this shit needs to end, And so I've like disabled while I'm away from the home, like my house, like being able to put up stories and stuff. But I think that for me, it can be exhausting if you're not on page, on the same page with, why am I showing up? Like, is it just to get a post up because I haven't put a post up in 5 days, or is it because I have something to share? And so that's what I have focused on for the last few months, is like, I share what feels good, what feels like it's either for me or helpful to someone else, but never because I have to. I'm never going to step away completely, even when it can be a little weird, because I know that I have something to share that can be helpful. But yeah, just trying to remember, like, there's a reason behind this. There's like, I'm showing up for a good reason, and it's, you know what I'm saying? Maybe
I
not.
love that reminder. I had a
Yeah.
friend maybe like 2 years ago. I was doing these videos on Instagram and YouTube. That was just like my thought for the day, because I had a friend from Vancouver who was like, you have all this wisdom, you're hoarding this wisdom, you need to share your wisdom with people. And I was just like, what are you talking about? But I mean, that kind of stuck with me, and I never really had like translated it. That stuck with me in terms of being able to share my voice in more areas. And um but I hadn't really thought about that being an inspiration for social media. Like, it's a place where I can share my gifts for in as a pay forward, as a pay it forward. Like, that's a very different way of looking at it. I very much appreciate that.
I know when you said it like I don't even know what you just said, but there's something, Rachel will use it as a quote card at some point, but around sharing your gifts and bringing it back. And you're like, oh, you said I know I have something to say to help people. And I was like, damn, because I feel like I go and again, I think you can use social media in many ways, but when I think about my posting, a lot of times it is like, I'm just sharing what I'm doing. So in that, yes, it's a modeling, but I don't know if I've ever really thought like, I don't know, am I just posting for me? Probably, which is fine too, but like, is it actually helping someone? I don't know. Because sometimes I feel like I just want to be like, sick picture, and then just post the picture because I like it. And then sometimes I feel like I'm reciting from my diary, and it's just like a random
You
assortment.
have to have a good mix.
Agreed.
Yeah,
It's about the portfolio.
yeah, true. But I like the lens of like, can this help somebody? And I think the confidence, Sam, that you just said, like, had when you said that was really cool. And I was like, oh damn, like I don't feel like I have that confidence when I post something. I'm not like, I know this is gonna help someone. And so it just like hit me really hard because your conviction there was strong. I'm like, I don't have any resolution to it, but I'm like sitting in my reaction to that.
I don't know. I think I've been so influenced though by posts or quotes or whatever that I've seen, or even, by you. Like, I asked you, how did you move away? It's like, I think that people relate or want to relate to what we're doing. They like us as this is why I showed like the day-to-day, me making a playlist. I'm just like, I sit at home all day too. I want people to relate to who I am as a real person. And then maybe when they see us out living our dream one day, then they'll be like, if she can, I can, and I look at you that way. Like, that's what, if you don't realize that, like, hello, here's one person, you know, I'm like, wow, like I need to go and have that courage to just go do the travel thing, because I've been talking about it for 10 years, you know.
Well, thank you. That's really nice to hear. 'Cause, yeah, as someone who is also seeking and has a million question marks in just about every area of my life, sometimes I think it's very easy to just be like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but here's a picture of a sunset. That's all I got for you today, people.
Mhm.
But how real is that to be able to be like, I have a bunch of question marks? Isn't that reality? Because we really don't know what is going to happen on the turn tomorrow. Like, and so that space there that feels maybe, and I'm putting words in your mouth, so you don't have to take them, but maybe feels like defeat or, um, you know, like lack of direction is like maybe more authentic and real, and maybe we need a little bit more of that sometimes instead of the trodden path that we think we have to take because everybody's taking it every single time. And so I don't know, like from an inspiration standpoint, it I agree. It's like the times when I've been able to see people struggle through but figure like doing it still is like that has been inspiring. That's inspired me to be able to step out of my comfort zone, to be able to sit with the question marks and be like, they're here and I'm not giving up. Like that's pretty freaking inspiring in my perspective.
You are getting me into an idea here. It's formulating because there's two things that I wanted to do today. I was like, I'm either going to turn my Instagram off and log out and go dark for a bit, which is possible still, or two, I feel like a social media authenticity challenge could be fun. I don't know what it looks like, but like just challenging, even if it's just for me, because I still feel like sometimes when I post, I'm just like, it's not that it's not authentic, but because it is just my life.
Creating it for an audience.
Exactly.
You know, it's not like you're ripping a page directly from the journal and you're like changing verbiage.
Exactly.
You know, yeah. Well,
Exactly.
I like
Put
this
that out
whole
there.
conversation about the question marks because it's so interesting. In the fall or winter of 2018 and 2019, this is like when I would start like doing a vision board or start thinking about the next year, right? And I'm like such a goal-oriented person and whatnot. And when I really started like loving the fitness stuff and then auditioned at Spire, my whole vision, like my highlight of 2019 was my community class at Spire. And in 2018, like that fall, that winter, that was me like kind of coming up with everything for the next year, you know. And then last year, 2019, I had so much confidence with the teaching and the coaching and everything. And I was like, I'm going to do fitness full time, but I still had my full-time job. In 2018 and 2019, I was feeling very empowered by the things I was doing and by the community I was surrounding myself with, and everyone, you know, is amping each other up for big goals and everything. And we would talk about them. And like a big powerful thing for me was using social media always to kind of throw that goal out into the universe, or you know, talk about it over and over again and work towards it, and then kind of show like prove to myself as I look back. I kind of use my Instagram, which probably keeps it authentic too, is I use it as like my diary. You know, it's like every day, dear diary. But anyway, I would put that stuff into a post or whatever, and would talk up these big goals and everything, but I still had like a job and a lot of stability. And so if things didn't work out, I feel like it wasn't that scary because I always had something to fall back on. And so right now I'm really sitting with the question marks because I'm kind of like, if I don't make this work, what do I do? You know, like if I don't continue to push myself and grow, like I can't get comfortable at all now. Like this is very uncomfortable for me right now. And even on our walk tonight, Nick doesn't really entertain me with these conversations, but I was just like, do you think I'm going to be successful? And he had the best response. And he said, like, what is success to you? You know, and I'm like, all right, like that's good to think about, because I think before it was always, again, about like impressing someone and like putting the big thing out there that was going to impress people. And I just, it looks really different for me right now. And it's kind of funny because next Wednesday I'm having a little vision board party, and like usually I come to these things and I'm like, gonna have a house in the mountains next year, you know, like all this bullshit. It's still, it's like fun and it's good to like work towards those goals and stuff, but it's like, what do I want? You know, what do I want right now? And so the post that you guys will see one day is probably going to look a little bit different. And it's probably going to be more a diary page that is like, it's okay to not know right now.
I appreciate that so much. And it's in the same place. It's funny. It's like a freeing place to be in when in 2020 for me, I let go of so much. Like I let go of so much to just pave the way for a pretty blank slate. But then when you have a blank slate and in this really cool world now where it's like, I mean, you could always do this, but even more so today, like you can basically do anything, right? You can be remote, you can be this, you can be that. And it's like, I have so many options now, which is awesome, but it's almost still overwhelming. Like I was having a conversation with someone and leading to the question marks, and it's like, I don't know if I actually miss the days where it's like, well, you're just going to live here because either your family lives here or because you got a job here or whatever. And like you had, you know, here are your maybe 2 to 3 choices. And right now for me, I'm like, I could literally do anything. Like I applied for a job in Germany, didn't get it, but you know, it's just like, I don't know, fuck it. Like, why not? And yeah, it's like, you know, it's obviously a mix of like stars aligning and, you know, the right things will show up, but it is kind of a scary place to be in. It's like a freeing and just like an overwhelming space to be in that for me, it's easy just to freeze and like not want to take any action then, because I feel like I have too many choices and I don't know where to go. And I'm just trying to remind myself, like, take a small step. And if it isn't what you like, you just pivot and do something else. But it's the clock that's racing in the back of my head that's like, why haven't you figured this out? I'm still young, but like, you need to make a decision. You need to land somewhere.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like, is it enough? You know, it's like, if I'm happy right now doing this, like I'm always looking for the next thing. And it's like, why can't you ever just be content with the now, and then something else is going to come along? I mean, it is cool to know that the page that I have on social media was just for my accountability. Then it turned into a platform to help women. Then it turned into a place to like really make a ton of connections and then partner with different companies too along the way. And it's like, oh, what's the next thing going to come? And it's like, why can't I just kind of enjoy where we're at? That part I struggle with sometimes.
Same. I'm like, oh man, we're both, I can tell the alignment in us both being Enneagram 3s. I'm like, yeah. Yep, that one. Hey, Rachel, are you on still?
Yes.
Okay, I just can't see her. I can't see you. Sam, can you see her?
Really?
I can see
her.
now
I can. Now I can.
She wasn't moving.
Okay. You're live. For whatever reason, you disappeared on my thing. Maybe never mind. I just changed my setting. Oops, don't know how to work Zoom after all these years.
I am here.
I want to make sure you're part of this conversation.
Yes. What was coming up for me while you were talking was, we have created a society that has had clear quotes, paths laid out for us. And I think we've seen how that manifested. And it's time to see what it looks like when maybe we lean into our question marks and we find the power of that space. Because there is magic in not having the path there and being able to adapt and being able to be resourceful and be with what is. So I personally am so excited to see that continue to come to life. Not that, you know, I love vision boarding too. So I think it's both. And yeah, I don't know. There was something I was going to say off of what Sam said, but I can't quite remember. I definitely am stepping into pretty much all of my security blankets that were there are falling away as I step into 2021. And it's the first time that I, like, normally, not that I'm not having like some stress, I'm just so like, I can't know what my, like, I used to, like, I'd be like, okay, so then here's my 6 month like temporary plan, and then I'd adjust it, and then I'd adjust it, and then I adjust it. And now I'm like, you know what, when I get to March 13th, I don't know, I just arbitrarily pulled that date out of my ass. When I get to February 21, 21st, like, I will know what to do then. And so right now, this is what I'm doing. This is the most important thing for me to be focusing on. And if I'm not focusing on this, then I won't be prepared for February 21st, or I'll be at February 21st still worrying about whatever. And so I don't know what shifted for me, but it's like, I'm not worrying about the question marks. Maybe just because I've like experienced enough stuff now go different, or I chose something that I wasn't sure, and I've seen it kind of, I've seen the dots connect now just enough, not so much that I'm like, I trust everything, but enough to be able to like release the worry and the fear in like a crippling way. The fear still exists, but I'm more so able to go, well, I know that something else can happen here, and I know it's a waste of time for me to plan out that far and worry about it and plan out all the scenarios that could possibly happen, because I don't have all the information. So I'm just going to hang tight here, still moving forward, doing the things that make sense now, and knowing that when I get there, I will know how to handle that then. It's literally the only way I've been able to like think about getting through the next few months, because there's a lot that's falling away that I've been able to lean on in the last decade that is not going to be there anymore. And I'm surprised at how like relieving and peaceful I feel. Like relieved and peaceful I feel. And I think that has something to do with it. So I love the question marks, I'm realizing in this moment.
I'm gonna try to re-embrace the question marks because I was a fan of them, and then I don't know, they're leaving the hurt in the heart.
And that's okay too, right? Like,
yes, that's why I'm saying it.
It's all of it.
If you asked me in July, I was like, question marks, yay!
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, question marks, here's my middle finger. All right. And for the sake of time, though, any final thoughts on this conversation? Otherwise, Sam, I have a few questions for you.
I have no final thoughts.
Cool. Perfect. So, Sam, we ask this at the end of our podcast. How do you live your true north in one word?
Trust.
Awesome. And then if people want to get a hold of you, connect with you, be inspired by you, where can they go to do that?
On Instagram at runitsam, RUNIT_SAM. And that's probably the best place.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really cool. I had mentioned this before, but I've been excited to chat with you for a while. I'm glad we made it happen. And
the conversation would have looked so different if it was so different.
I know. That's like when we were going into this, I was like, yeah, I think it was meant to be delayed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool.
I enjoyed the conversation. I wrote down a few things that Rachel just said. So I'm like,
yes, my wisdom. I didn't hoard my wisdom.
Let it shine, let it shine.
And I want to just acknowledge you, Sam, because I think that I hope people who are interested, I hope people listen to this episode. I hope everybody does, because the way that you spoke to being able to use this platform that I think is really sticky for people was so approachable, and so like a weight feels lifted off of me. It was inviting, it was expansive, it was gracious, and it gave space to like find your way. I don't know, it created a freshness for that space that I don't feel like I've really heard or experienced in a lot of social media conversations ever. So, and I used to be in advertising, so I feel like I was in those conversations. So I just want to just keep doing what you're doing. It is effortless for you, and it hits the heart.